Josh, as I'm sitting here, if you're watching with us, I'm going to flash a picture from our episode last year. All right. And this is zoomed in a little bit. However, you appear to be zoomed in a lot more than you do now. Okay. There has been a massive transformation that I've watched over the last year within you. It's been very, I've been inspired big time watching it happen. And again, a year can seem like a long time, but you are half the person that you were in the photo I just showed. How far are you, by the way, how far are you down?
I stopped weighing myself a couple months ago, but I would guess between 65 and 70 pounds.
Good gracious.
Yeah.
Man. All right. So, and obviously you feel probably a million times better.
Oh, dude, listen, my wife would laugh because I talk about it too much because yes, I do feel a million times better. And even more than that, it's really hard to think back to even just a year ago because so many things in the way I approach life has changed. In fact, as we're sitting here, I know the Hitstreak reaches a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who, they're probably thinking, what in the world's a pastor on the show going to really bring to me? I'll skip the Christmas episode. And let me encourage you right now to not do that because there's a whole lot of things we're going to talk about in here that I think are truly going to be life transforming for a lot of people, things that are going to be helpful for people because whether you're an employee for somebody or you're the business owner or you're the boss, or the manager, entrepreneur, all those things, no matter what, we're all designed for the same purpose. Okay. Whether you believe it or not, doesn't even matter. You're still designed for the same purpose. All right. And so I'm gonna go ahead and say it to the camera. That purpose is this, it's to know God, to become closer to God every single day. And when you do that, you fall in love with God. The more you know God, the more you love God. The more you love God, the more you will love people. They play off each other. So the first thing you're created for is to know God. The second thing is to make him known. And so what does Jesus say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's number one. What's the second one? Love your neighbor as yourself.
That's right.
To know God, number one. To make him known, number two. So if you apply those things in your life in general, it will elevate everything else that you do in your business, in your family, with your friends. So yeah, don't skip this episode. Let's talk about it more.
All right. So it was about this time last year that you made the decision to make some changes, right? And I want to throw this out there too, because as I was listening to you when you were saying those things, for 2024, for my family and my wife and I, it's been one of the most, we've had some of the most spiritual growth in our entire lives, especially me personally. But in the world in the professional world, we've been extremely blessed and accomplished tons of new things. However, we've had some of the biggest, a lot of the first problems that we've had in life this year have been some of the biggest ones. Like a lot of people know about the huge $500,000 renovation we did on our home and the pool and everything. And literally within a year, the pool wall collapsed. 6 months later, we're still going through that, trying to fix that. And when you do things like that, there's plans for when it's done. And I was in a small little fender bender about this time last year. And I mean, when I'm talking small, I'm talking like my Jeep had zero work done to it after this fender bender. I'm being sued for $500,000. Like there has been so many things where the IRS messed up my daughter's social security number and they're withholding a good sum of money that we can't get that's ours that we can't get our hands on. We're just waiting on them to give it back. And it's been a lot of just dumb, inconvenient things that has made it extremely hard to grow professionally. Yeah. Okay. However, going back to what I talked about, watching your transformation, and then you gave, that sparked this time last year, and then there was a 14-week sermon series that you gave this year that was the most powerful sermon series I've ever heard by like infinity. Okay. Dealing with faith. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you leveraged, because I got to say that a lot of what you gave in that sermon series started, it was only available to us because of the decision you made about this time last year to transform. So first of all, if you didn't have my attention before, when I'm watching you shrink on stage real time, you know what I mean? And literally de-age, it was like you had all my attention and I was just glued in, right? And this is honestly, like, I love reruns. And I've watched that sermon series over and over and over again. It's one of my favorite things to listen to when I work out. Okay, I get something new almost every single time. So for those folks that are, the holiday season can be hard for some folks. Talk to me about how you were able to leverage the holiday season to start to really hone in on your purpose, your vision, your dreams, and so on and so forth. What advice would you have for folks?
Well, it's been, as we're recording this, it's 11 months that I've been on this journey, but when this episode comes out, it will have been a full year, a little over a full year. And man, it's a lot to unpack. It's a long story. But a lot of times we get to the end of the year, we get to the Christmas season, and man, we're kind of playing out the string, right? It's the 12th month of the year. It's time for Christmas parties. It's holidays. We're celebrating a lot of stuff. If you got kids, they're involved in all different kinds of events, whatever it may be. And all of us have our minds set on, let me get through this month and have the most fun that I can have with it. And then in January, I'm going to make some changes and I'll get back on my horse and do some good things.
That's right.
But I had reached a point where I was experiencing some health problems.
Okay. And
the problems were with my heart. I had for a few years developed basically an irregular heartbeat. I had PVCs, preventricular valve, whatever it may be. It's basically extra heartbeats that I had going on that would cause this fluttering. And I had them for a couple years. I went to visit multiple cardiologists, did a whole variety of tests, and both of them basically told me, you're fine. This is a fairly common thing. We can give you some prescription medication and that should help with it a little bit, but there's no need to worry. You're going to be around for a long time. And the problem with that is I felt physically terrible. I mean, it felt really bad and it was getting worse. And then when you add on some of the stresses that I have in the role that I have at the church, I'm raising 4 kids. I got 2 kids in college. I got lots of stuff going on. I started to go, what's making this worse? Is this stress related? And it became a matter of where I would think if I can just find a place on the couch and not move, maybe it'll go away and my heart will just beat normally. Okay. And it got to a point where I was just really uncomfortable. And then my wife's best friend from high school passed away.
Oh no.
She had cancer. She had 2 kids, two boys, and she passed away.
I remember her talking about that.
It was very sad. We went up to Chicago and we went to her funeral, and we had a meal before the funeral. Went and we're sitting in the service, and I was sitting there, and I had a tie on, I had everything, and I seriously felt like about as uncomfortable as you could feel. I felt like I wanted to jump out of my skin, like the tie was just strangling me. And as I was sitting in the funeral, the thought came in my head, my funeral's next.
Holy cow. Okay,
that's how I felt. And so I came home. The funeral was up in Chicago. We came back home. I didn't tell my wife any of this. And I'm sitting in a recliner, and I mapped out in my head, how many more years do I need to live like this so I can make it through my kids' graduation and their weddings? How much longer can I be around for my youngest daughter so that she'll at least remember me? Because I don't want to live like this anymore. And in that moment, and it was a God thing, it was like a light bulb went off, okay?
Got it.
And this is kind of shocking and maybe jarring to people who might listen to the messages and things that I do to hear me talk like this. But it was almost like God said, how about instead of mapping out your last 10 years being the worst that they could be, what if you decided from now on to make every single day an improvement upon your life of what it could be? What if 1 year from now, and I mean, this was crystal clear. I'm not saying it was an audible voice from God or anything like that, but it was a crystal clear thought that I had never had in my life before. So it was not from me. And this is in the midst of negativity that was going on in my head. And anybody who struggled with depression or negativity knows that a seriously positive thing does not just come from out of nowhere. This is a God thing. And in that moment, it was like God said, 1 year from now, 365 days, if you decide right in this moment to make every single day count and improve from here on out, and instead of mapping out the worst, you map out a plan for improvement each day and become intentional about it and live it out. 1 year from now, you will not be the same person and you will not feel like you feel right now. So I immediately got out a journal and I wrote 1 week, and I just found this journal yesterday. For 1 week, on the first day, I wrote down literally how I felt right in that moment physically, how my heart felt, how it was beating, what was going on inside, the whole thing. And I had in bold caps that I wrote on day one, I weighed 265 pounds. I wrote, I don't want to feel like this anymore. It ends now.
That's so awesome.
Okay. And that began the process of 1 year of a change. And I was listening to your podcast. Okay. My initial plan was this. So come January 1st, I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
Yep.
Okay. Got to get through Christmas. Got to do whatever. Okay. And I was listening to your podcast. I don't remember who was your guest. You might remember when I say this, but I heard him say, if you're waiting till your New Year's resolution, you've already failed.
Who was that?
And he said, you have to start now. And I had already written, it ends now. Like this, the way I feel, it ends now. And I thought, that guy's right. He's 100% right. If it's this important to me and I really want to change, then I'm not waiting.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to figure out a way to live this life with all of these different festivities and activities and bake-offs and church potlucks and going out. 50% of my job as a pastor is I'm out with people having meals and having whatever. Yeah. Okay. I got to figure out how to live in this new space and do it correctly. All right. So I can't punt this down the road. It has to start now.
Yeah.
And so, December and the Christmas season now for me represents this time of like the beginning of transformation and change.
It's amazing.
And it's been awesome.
It's a, at the end of the day, we're all at wherever we're at in life today is literally the sum result of every choice we've ever made.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like 80 to 85% of the choices we make on a daily basis are subconscious. We don't even know we're making them. However, it came down to you just literally making a choice, which, one of my favorite traditional hymns is I've decided to follow Jesus. It's a choice, right? It's a choice. Everything that at the end of the day that you're truly struggling with in life, you're one choice away from changing, right? And only you can make a choice. Only you can make a choice. So it was So talk to me a little bit about, I want to unpack this a little bit as far as like, because you didn't tell anybody you were doing this real time. As a matter of fact, you made this decision and you usually can't see results physically for weeks at a time. You know what I'm saying? So did you tell your family what you were going to do, or did you just start it and because as a congregation, we're like, that shirt looks too big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, my family knew that I had been visiting doctors.
Okay.
And of course, my wife knew what was going on, and there were some people in my inner circle who I told as accountability partners and said, this is something that I'm going to be doing. You're going to see this change take place. And over the course of time, I'll begin talking about it more. And so I shared it in that way. And as far as the congregation news, I didn't share it because I don't think anyone really understood the depth of. Let me tell you how deep it went.
Okay.
Okay. I did share with the elders at one point that I was considering resigning.
Okay.
Because if I couldn't figure out why I was feeling so bad, then I had to figure out if maybe it was a stress related thing, and if I had to make outside changes in my life to see if it would solve it. Now, what kept me from doing that was I realized, well, what if I go ahead and do that, and that's not the problem.
That's right.
And so the point that I realized is, wait a minute, I'm trying to control all these other things instead of just looking in the mirror and dealing with my reality. I actually Googled, will PVCs go away Or like, are they caused by, excessive weight or, all these different things? And it actually said there's no guarantee that it would go away. But for me, it didn't matter because all I knew is this is how I feel and that needs to change. And if there's anything I can do to control it, the one thing I can't control is my decisions, what I'm doing each day. And I got this yearly calendar and I just thought to myself, okay, if I have 365 days and I actually set out an intentional plan that I'm going to lose 1 pound a week over the next 52 weeks, that's 52 pounds. I'll be just 210, a little bit over. The lightest I've ever been was when I was in college, my junior year at Ole Miss for the baseball team. I weighed in for our weigh-ins at 205.
Okay.
That was the skinniest I'd ever been as a full-grown adult. And I found a picture of myself from that time, and I slapped it on the mirror, like Rocky slapped Ivan Drago on the mirror when he killed Apollo Creed. And I looked at that guy, and I was like, I'm coming after you.
Yep.
And that dude had a full head of hair and looking all whatever. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to get you, and I'm going to be better than you. And I'm not going to be skinny fat.
Yeah.
I like basically, which is mean I'm just going to go run and lose a bunch of weight. I was like, no, my goal is to be in the best shape ever. I want to build muscle. I want to lose weight. I want to truly transform all of it, and begin that process. And so I set out to say my goal is 1 pound a week. And then I got crazy and added an extra pound for the month. So I thought each month I'm going to lose 5 pounds. And at the end of each month, I wrote in ahead of time. So at the end of January, I started in reality, I weighed 262 on the scale. So I started that 1st of December. That meant beginning of January, getting through Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Beginning of January, I would be 257. At the beginning of February, I'm 252.
Yeah.
March, 247, and then just do the math. And I wrote it out, and
incredible.
It was not I wonder if I can do it. So it just became this is it. There's no other option. I burned the ships on all the other stuff. Anyway, I could talk about this for too long.
No, it's so important because there's so many of us out there that making that next, making that choice. There's something holding us back from making that choice, right? So, the greatest in sports. I love listening to Coach Prime talk about the greatest plays you ever made. Which ones were they? He goes, there weren't no cameras rolling. They were in practice. I practiced. So Derek Jeter said, if you practice hard enough, the game is, it's nothing different.